It's Isaac Willour is here from Young Voices. He's a political writer with an organization called Young Voices, and they've been getting us smart young people, politically astute, and with all kinds of observations to make, to come on the air and talk about the columns they're writing and stuff. So, Isaac, nice to have you back. We're going to discuss the war on milk. It's about time they fought a war against that white, insidious beverage. So tell us about it, Isaac. What's this all
Todd,
about?
How are you doing? I'm really glad we get to talk about this as the opening act to you discussing this medical procedure that happened. That's great. So,
they fit together nicely too.
Hopefully they don't. So the point. So this is one of those really nutty stories that happens every once in a while when ESG activists get to speak out about their little pet issues. So recently, yesterday, in fact, or Wednesday, PETA, People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, and not people who want milk in their coffee, apparently, launched their latest volley in the war for corporate utopia. Their plan is to get rid of, to force Starbucks to subsidize vegan milk. So this is as bizarre as it sounds.
Oh, because they charge you extra, you mean, when you want an oat milk?
They charge you an average of 70 cents extra, and apparently this is just deeply injurious to the American experiment and the future of corporate goodness. But yeah, this is PETA's plan, is to force Starbucks to eat the cost of vegan milk, which costs more to produce. And as I argued in Real Clear Markets this morning, outlets as notoriously conservative as Mother Jones have pointed out that vegan milk costs more money. But to PETA, this does not matter.
But hang on a sec. Does it cost more money because it's new and they haven't developed the infrastructure? If demand for oat milk and soy milk and whatever else they use, if that were as high as dairy milk, wouldn't that drive down the prices? Because you would think it's cheaper to grow oats than it is to grow animals.
100%, Todd. Yeah, no, this is the truth. It's oat milk, vegan milk is a nascent industry. It is very, very new, as opposed to people have been drinking milk for significantly longer than 30 years. So this is the reality. But the problem is, as of now, vegan milk is still significantly more expensive. And PETA is not asking Starbucks to adjust their prices as the price of vegan milk goes down. They're asking them to do it now, unilaterally, as a business, and to just whatever cost is accrued by that, that's just the cost of doing good business.
But that doesn't mean Starbucks is going to listen to them.
No, it doesn't. That's correct. And so props to Starbucks. Props to their shareholders. The proposal is rejected. But the problem is when you get to moments like this where ESG activists feel this is not the kind of proposal.
Tell us what that means, that ESG thing. What's that?
This is the sort of proposal that should be laughed out of the room before it should ever go on any sort of public-facing document, right? It's so bizarre. It's so out of left field in both senses of the term. This is the kind of thing that shareholders do not want, because it will result in increased costs for them from Starbucks. These ESG activists are asking for things that hurt the consumer and that hurt the business.
No, they're in terms of PETA.
Man, so brazenly.
But hang on, PETA is like the Donald Trump of activism, right? They know how to get the free press and how to control a news cycle. And they started out, I don't know, it must have been 40 years ago when they wanted people to stop wearing furs, and they went and threw red paint on a couple of women's furs who were wearing white fur, and it caused an absolute furor, and everyone stopped wearing furs because they didn't want to be the victim of that kind of attack. And this is great PETA PR. They get tons of press for doing nothing but writing up a little press release. It's brilliant.
Yeah, and super gluing their hands to cafe counters. They send in their activists, but super glue their hands to coffee counters, because that's really sticking it to the man. But the point is, I mean, the proposal has been rejected, right? It's not a win for PETA yet. Although on the PR front, I can definitely see your point. But I think it's a wake up call to all of us who care about good corporate governance and companies being accountable to their shareholders. Of these are the people that we are up against. They have this level of economic understanding, and they think that this is completely normal. They think that this is what counts as corporate best practice.
We
realize how bizarre it is.
Can you back up a little bit? Tell us about ESG you mentioned. What is this, and why is it?
Yeah, so ESG stands for Environmental, Social, and Governance, right? ESG. And the ESG takes a lot of different forms. It's sometimes we'll talk about issues of racism. You saw us a lot, especially post-2020, demands for everything from public statements to more recently we've seen things along the lines of asking companies to publish unadjusted median pay gaps based on race, which is a very inaccurate measure of company income that can make companies seem racist even when they're not, because they are, as we said, unadjusted. ESG is basically basically political correctness for 2024. It's a very corporatized version of political correctness. How do you make sure companies are not only having the right opinions, but making sure that their corporate weight is put behind those correct opinions? How do we make sure they're saying the right, appropriately woke things about racism or about gender ideology?
How does who make sure?
This is what ESG has morphed into. What's that?
How does who make sure that they're saying the right things and doing the right things?
So essentially, whenever public companies have meetings, they take shareholder proposals. Mm-hmm. And there are very powerful groups, most of them on the left, that argue for these sorts of publications by companies, reports, these sorts of things, and then shareholders vote on them. Their goal is to get enough shareholders to vote on them to put this into company policy. And sometimes they succeed, a lot of times they don't, especially on some of these more lefty things. That's the plan.
So you're saying there's a movement now among shareholders to intimidate the companies through the stockholder meeting, that the leverage that somebody who has a partial ownership in the company, they band together and they say they want things, and then that becomes an agenda item, and the company has to consider whether to do it or not. And we've seen plenty of cases where large institutions, in order to avoid potential conflict, which is the opposite of what their goal is, they want to make profits, not have conflict. So they have an inclination, I think, to cave in on ridiculous things, and then those ridiculous things become institutionalized. They become part of the culture. Is that what is their end game? Is that what you're concerned about, Isaac?
So yes and no, Todd. So yes, in the sense of sometimes this works. In this case, it didn't work. Shareholders are, by and large, very smart. They understand that this is a net negative for the company as it stands right now. They understand this would result in increased prices. They don't want it, even though PETA's section of shareholders may. They vote against it. It doesn't happen. But PETA will keep trying. Everybody keeps trying. What I'm worried about, fundamentally, is the fact that there are the sort of people who do ESG activism are fully aware that demands like this, like the vegan milk is only the start, right? They're fully aware that these kind of demands hurt businesses. They don't care. They simply don't care, because helping businesses make profit, which should be priority number one for any shareholder, is now no longer the priority. It's now political messaging, political activism, pet causes like vegan milk. It's all part and parcel of trying to take the focus of modern business away from making profit, away from fiduciary duty to company shareholders, to political activism.
I want to ask you more about this. Hang on a second, Isaac. We're talking to Isaac Willour. He is with an organization called Young Voices. If you search his name, W-I-L-L, Will Hour, O-U-R, Isaac Willour. Search him, and you can find his written stuff online. We're going to pause for a break. We'll continue our conversation coming up on WTIC.
Never miss a moment. Go listen to the Todd Feinberg podcast on the Odyssey app.
We're talking to Isaac Willour, and we're talking about ESG, this movement among investors to make all kinds of nice, politically correct things happen at the behest of them, intimidating the company they own stock in. And the story about PETA telling Starbucks they need to even out the price, not charge extra for vegan milk options, is a new frontier that they're fighting on. And I wonder what the repercussions are going to be, Isaac. Is it likely this is a first volley and that over time they will pick away and be able to make progress? And does it matter that Starbucks is now unionized in part, and does having a third-party special interest group in some way interfering with the management of the company. I'm referring to the union. Will they band together with these guys, with PETA, at some point? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, Todd. So I think there's probably two ways this could go, probably at least two. One is perhaps more optimistic, which is this is taken as this is just another. I mean, obviously, this proposal from PETA failed miserably and in rather laughable fashion. But if this, so two things could happen here. One, vegan milk continues to become less expensive as supply chains become more efficient and streamlined. And over time, the actual market price actually evens out, at which point everybody wins.
This happens organically.
Right. Yeah, that's a pun. There was a lot of puns in here that are just completely unintentional. But so that's one way, right? That's one way. That would be the ideal way, because then shareholders win, customers don't have to pay more, the company wins, free enterprise wins, everybody's happy. That's what could happen.
It is remarkable how many people order the special milks.
Yeah, like I don't do it, but I understand why people do it. I have friends who do, and I just, we just make fun of each other, and it's lovely. I have no problem with any of this. But so that's the happy way. That's the happy ending. The less awesome way for this to go is that PETA just continues to push, and even if they can't get Starbucks to do it, maybe they get a smaller coffee chain to do it. Maybe they get some smaller company to be able to do this, to fold under pressure, and then it hurts customers. It hurts coffee customers. So I don't think there's any way for these kinds of demands that come from PETA accepting organic, long-term market price leveling. Outside of that, I don't think there's any way this gets resolved in a pro-business, pro-customer way. And I think they're fully aware of this. They just don't care. It's all about politics with these people. And we want business to focus on business.
You're aggravated by these people, the PETA people, making this demand of Starbucks. But there must be other examples of this kind of push for politically correct policies that are hurting companies, that companies are struggling with the demand marketplace. If this isn't a problem, where does your edge on it come from? What's going on?
Yeah, well, our edge on it comes from the fact that we are inherently pro-business. We want businesses to be able to maximize their profits, not maximize their political statements. And we think that depoliticizing business is the best way for businesses to appeal to a wider customer base and be able to provide more money for their shareholders. That's how this has worked historically. And the fact that that is somehow not enough now for people who view business as a Trojan horse of sorts for politics, the fact that those people are suddenly not satisfied with it means nothing to me. I maintain that we're right. I maintain that businesses should be focused on business, and I'm not alone in that.
Yeah, they should be, but you're talking like this ESG movement is a threat, and I assume it does have some legs because I hear those letters thrown around a lot. What is going on in the world of ESG that has mattered thus far, that's had impact?
Yeah, it's a pressure game. It's a corporate pressure game because a lot of businesses, some businesses at least, are not willing to stand up to that kind of pressure. It's easier for some businesses to just cave and do these kinds of things that in the end may actually hurt their bottom line, but will avoid, a nasty hit piece on PETA's blog or this sort of thing. And what our edge is that there's a win-win. There's a way for companies to resist the urge to politicize themselves and alienate shareholders and customers in the process, as we've seen with Bud Light and to a lesser extent Target. There's a way out of that. There's a way to not do that. And it involves, perhaps unsurprisingly, historic tools like make good products, tell the truth, have integrity in your business practices, and don't bow to political pressure because that's distracting you from your mission.
All right, so you're trying to be a countervailing force to PETA and the other left-wing groups that are making these demands.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, my firm, Boyer Research, many other firms, we want politics largely out of business. We want business to do business. And we'll stand against that, against anybody who would corrupt the goal of business with politics. It's
because we all benefit, you would argue, from having prices be bare bone, as cheap as possible. We don't want artificial hikes to the cost of operating.
Yeah. Against this ESG surge, we believe in some apparently wildly radical premise that low prices are good companies being part of political polarization is bad. We believe in those very basic things, and I think we're going to be borne out as correct in the coming years and decades.
These are funny times we live in. I tend to frequent small, more expensive coffee shops because I love really good coffee, and I like the ones whose owners are out there scouring the earth for the best small supplier of bold, strong coffee. And it's remarkable to me how many people are buying this extra stuff, and they get $1 at the place I go to. They get $1 for oat milk being added to your $4 beverage, which is pretty remarkable to me. And I don't drink it because it tastes better with milk, and I've got no reason to go for anything else. But the number of people who are doing it, I wonder what the motivation is.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people who there's some data on this. A lot of people who drink plant milk over dairy like it because they just think it tastes better. I think everyone should be entitled to their choices on what they want to put in their coffee without a bunch of political activists and animal rights activists.
Yeah, you think the marketplace should work it out.
People's way. I think everyone should be free to make those choices, including companies.
Yeah.
And the ESG lobby won't let them.
But nobody should be intimidated or leveraged or whatever.
No, that is correct. Nobody should be intimidated into making bad business practices for political reasons.
How do people find your stuff, Isaac?
Yeah, so I'm on Twitter, Isaac Willour, ISAAC WILLOUR. You can look up my firm, Boyer Research, BOWYER research.com, and look up Young Voices as well. You can find my stuff there.
Isaac, you rock. Thank you for being here.
Todd, thanks so much, man. Have fun telling them about your medical procedure.
Oh, I'm looking forward to it. Thank you so much.